Hi Capricorn, thanks for joining me over here. Right, I'm just going to tidy these cards away while I'm talking to you. I think the one thing that's been missing for you of late, and it's something that, when I say of late, it's probably largely for the totality of this year, if not going into last year as well, is the certainty with which you usually work. Okay, this is a thing, that's what I want, that's the way I'm going to go and get it, right? And head down, just work at it. And although that has its most obvious manifestation in, or expression rather, in the way that you take care of your material existence, it isn't restricted to that. I mean, it can happen in all sorts of ways. So, I don't think that you're obsessed with work or earning money or any of the other things that I've been accused of recently. It's a kind of drive, right, that characterizes how you go about most things. But what sits at the bottom of it is a certainty of how things need to go and what it is that you need to achieve, and what you're going to do to bring that about. I feel for Capricorn, most of this year has been spent in this kind of weird grey place, this sort of liminality. Let me roll a tab, I'm talking. Where the one thing that's really been quite absent has been the certainty. I mean, there might have been flashes of it here and there, but you've gone so far down that road with whatever the flash, of insight was, only to find that it's just kind of boggy. It's not what you thought it was. And whether that's, the ways that you've looked for satisfaction or validation or comfort or anything, it's like wandering through a fog. And that is deeply, deeply uncomfortable for a Capricorn. I think... Well, no, it just is. There's just nothing else to say about that. It is deeply uncomfortable for a Capricorn not to be able to work out where you're going and then retro-engineer the steps and then just start following them. That's how we do stuff. I think we're highly task-oriented. I say we because I am a Capricorn ascendant. But that's how we get stuff done. So whether it's to do with your home life, your family situation, your friends, whatever, if there's an objective, Capricorns don't tend to drift very much. And I think what is being unlocked here, and it's been happening for a while now, is connection with something that will let you flow a little bit more than you have done, perhaps ever. And the interesting thing that I've got going on here is the trust and faith aspect. Which is interesting because we haven't really had any cards that touch upon this, but it's something that I feel quite strongly. Trust and faith in self, trust and faith in other people, trust and faith in what it is that we are building. We can say, right, well, I made a plan, I took care of all the moving parts, and I just worked diligently with delayed gratification towards this thing. But what's been missing is the fulfillment. The fulfillment that was expected, right? That has formed part of one's past track record, right? Now, I worked really hard for this thing, I achieved it, felt good. Rinse and repeat. I feel like the desire to rinse and repeat is there, but it doesn't matter how many times you rinse or repeat. What you're not getting is that hit in the place that you need it. And I think, in all honesty, Capricorn, I don't think there's anybody who's got through 2023 without being changed on some sort of really fundamental level. you know, and this has been an ongoing process, not just for you, but actually for everyone, for the last 3 years. You know, 2020 changed the landscape dramatically for everyone, changed everybody, in a really dramatic and obvious way. But 2023, I said this in the 6-month overviews actually, that I did for January to June this year. What really struck me was how many towers everybody was getting. Like Sagittarius was the exception there, but you know, and I might have actually mentioned this to you last month. This like crisis, deal with it, crisis, deal with it, crisis, deal with it. Like we've been dealing with so many fucking crises, and there's just a wall of crap out there in the world that is looking to make you like pick a side in some sort of way. And it's with everything. It's not with one situation, it's with everything. And where Capricorn I think likes to deal in black and white uncertainty and all that kind of thing, we find ourselves in a world that is anything but. There's nothing to anchor ourselves to, and the media will tell you to anchor yourself to this thing or the other. But that leaves us spinning, I think, emotionally. Because it's not even just about getting a dopamine hit of achieving something, right? It's about feeling that stability and that security. It's been being eroded since 2020, but this year has really stepped up a notch. And so we have all individually and collectively been made to feel so uncomfortable that really deep parts of us are now changing. They're shifting in response to the environment that we find ourselves in. And quite simply, the way that we were before just will not work any longer. And you're not unique in that, Capricorn. Like, I want to make that really clear. Like, everybody has had that happen to them in some way or another. Now, the specific point of growth for you, I do feel, does come down to that Two of Cups. It comes down to the intimacy. Like parts of you that have been walled off for a long time that even you don't have contact with, let alone anybody else. And it's not to torture us. Oh, it's so weird. Like the last few years, I've been increasingly black-pilled about the state of the world, and then 2023 something just changed, and I've just seen more reasons to be hopeful, even though everything is degenerating into shit around ourselves, than ever before. And I wonder if it's because I'm seeing the way that people are changing, like people are really leaning into themselves. Because the astrology right up till 2030 is tumultuous, let's put it that way. As we would expect for a world that is changing beyond recognition. But I do think it means individually and collectively we have an opportunity here to shape the world into what it ought to be rather than what it has been. You know, all this energy of Pluto being active as it has been for the last 3 years has been about dredging shit up to the surface, and that's, you know, we've seen the rise of the global shadow for sure, but we're also experiencing our individual shadows rising too. And what rings out clear and true for me talking to you, Capricorn, is that there is something innately precious within you that you have tried your entire life to protect, because at some point it got lanced, and that was a pain beyond anything else that you know at that point you were capable of tolerating. So it's just like, shut it down, I'm going to do something else instead, and that's worked for the longest time, but it's not working now. And Pluto's been in your sign since 2008 as a Capricorn ascendant. I have felt that pretty fucking hard. As I'm sure you have. None of us are the same as we were in 2008 for sure. Certainly I've got a lot more grey hair than I had in 2008, no doubt. But Pluto stationed direct on the 10th of October. It's been retrograding in your sign. And he's now moving very slowly forwards over the last degrees of Capricorn. This is about breaking down systems, structures, institutions, external, collective, and internal too. And it would make sense that Pluto moving through the last few degrees of your sign is about really making sure that that work has been done. Pluto, I should check because I keep forgetting to do it, but I'm sure it's around about the third week in January that Pluto gets through those last couple of degrees of Capricorn and then pops out into Aquarius. Right? That is going to lead to a relief for you, no shadow of a doubt at all. It will go back into the last couple of degrees of Capricorn at some point in the summer, I think, before coming back out again and staying in Aquarius full time forever. As a Capricorn ascendant, I do believe that means it's going to be squaring my moon for quite a long time, but my moon is early. Hang on, getting confused with my astrology here. I have a Leo moon, and it's an early degree Leo moon. So next couple of years are going to be a little bit tense for me. That's it. Yeah. Depending on, what's going on with you, you may or may not be having the same thing. If you're a Leo moon, it's a thing. But this really is about making your life a better place to inhabit. And realising that the power rests with you to do that. And it's not about setting a goal and smashing through it or any of those kind of things, or even, just the way that you work. It's about realising that the magic resides within you. And wherever you feel powerless, there is a root to that. There is somewhere where that started. And if you can heal that, which is what I do believe this entire process is about for you, Capricorn, then you get to show up whole, integrated. Not reactionary, not blinkered. You can flow a little bit more. And I think that you've got to a point now where flow seems really quite attractive, but there is a fear about how that is going to be, understandably so. Because it requires a hands off the wheel, like giving up the control. And this is where the trust and faith seems to come in. Trusting and having faith that you are special, and that every bit as special as you fear that you're not. So these are big moves, and they are uncomfortable, and it's actually very subtle work that's going on here. It's very profound work, but it's very subtle work too. That is characterized by uncertainty. Because the world is changing. The collective energies of Pluto are changing. It was never going to be comfortable. I think that's what I'm trying to say here, Capricorn. So, let's get some cards out on the table, because I've been prattling on for ages now. Sorry about that. Right, so, let's flip these around. We have got the Nine of Pentacles in reverse, and we've got the Nine of Wands there in the upright. Really quite important for you, and I'll get into that with why in a second. What's going on here? We've got the Seven of Pentacles, for sure. Good Lord. Okay, we have got Page of Wands and the Knight of Wands, both in the reverse. Two of Wands in the upright. Three of Wands right in the centre. Love this. Okay, what needs to know? We've got the Star. That's funny. That was the one thing that came through in the meditation before I did your reading. Was the Star. I'll explain in a moment. Okay. Got the Eight of Swords. Just Capricorn need to know. Got the Tower. Six of Pentacles. King of Wands now at the bottom of the deck. So there's quite a lot going on here, actually, Capricorn. And I can see why December would be would be less certain than you would like it to be, because there's a lot of moving parts to it. And like I said, a lot of this is very subtle. There's very little that you can kind of grasp onto and go, right, this is the way forward, and I'm going to go with this, because things are shifting and things are changing around, and for every little step that you take forwards, it's really, really important that you then stop, reflect, take stock, and check in with the body. We've got two kings who both speak in their own ways to the physicality. We've got the King of Pentacles and the King of Wands. Both have got that. You know, the King of Pentacles is very material, and so your body is going to be part of that. But the King of Wands also speaks to physicality. He speaks to what you do with your body, you know. These cards across the top are really important, and I feel like they're a statement of where you are right now. And the good thing is, you're very close to the end of this particular I want to use the word transit, but it's not in a it's not in an astrological sense necessarily that I mean that. But maybe I do. Maybe it's the Pluto transit that is the most significant part of this for you. Because there's a process going on here, and the process will have its completion. So actually, I'm just going to fucking totally go with it being Pluto. We've got the Nine of Pentacles reversed, and we've got the Nine of Wands in the upright. Then the Seven of Pentacles, and the Page of Wands, and the Knight of Swords. It is not Wands, Knight of Swords here. Those cards across the top are a very clear statement of the way that you have done things up until this point. You know, have reached a point where they cannot go any further. The way that you express yourself has to change. The way that you initiate things has to change. The amount of passion that you put into things has to change, right? It's almost like what we're talking about here is a state of priorities shifting into something that you don't recognize, but are being called to get more comfortable with and use as the driving force for what you do moving forwards. You know, whenever the King of Wands is involved, I do think that timing is really important for the King of Wands, but there's the energy of what we put into stuff. And notice that the Nine of Pentacles is reversed. We saw it in the upright in the YouTube reading. And I think that's a kind of wider statement because it was the shadow card and therefore an underlying theme for the whole reading. It was kind of like an overarching statement of what is going on here. It is getting you in touch with all the resources that you have at your disposal, which you currently do not. Because the emotional stuff, some of the emotional stuff, is walled off pretty hard. And that is giving you a very blinkered view of what maybe just what reality is altogether, actually, and your place in it. This is all shifting, this is all changing, because you've topped out where you are. The Nine of Pentacles in reverse says that your resources are not currently going in the right direction. And by resources, I don't mean your money. I mean your time, your care, your effort, your love, your energy generally. What it is that you're focusing on. And I would hazard a guess that it hasn't been you for the longest time. It's always been externally focused. Is the thing that requires the adjustment. Now it's a 9, which means you are very close to the end, and you've got a double 9 there, which is really restating that you are close to the end of this transit, this period of your life where your priorities are shifting, your values are shifting. What it is that you want to put your energy into is shifting away from what you have known to what you don't know now. This is uncharted territory for you. It's not possible for you to retro-engineer the steps that you have to take, because where you're going to end up is something that actually isn't very clear to you at this point in time, which means that you can't really control outcomes. You can't really control anything. Like, again, it's down to this faith and trust, and as much faith and trust in yourself in this new direction that you seem to be traveling, as it is in the universe and the plan that it has for you, and whatever your contribution to the collective unconscious is, what it is that you are here to heal and to learn in this lifetime. Like, it's subtly altering in front of you, and it's difficult to get a fix on what it is while it's still in a state of flux. On the 9 of Wands, Moon in Sagittarius, I think. It's about resilience. Now, you might be highly resilient in all sorts of ways, highly adaptable in all sorts of ways, but they're not what you're being asked to shift or change at this point. They're good. You've got that. There's nothing to learn there. Again, you've kind of topped out in this direction. What is most uncomfortable to you is the direction that you are being asked to travel, as we all are at this point. And so that might be categorized by, I don't know. See, even frustrations and delays and stuff like that, I feel like as a Saturn-ruled sign, this is something that you actually are quite accustomed to. It's just part of the process. This is what happens, right? We get there in the end. We just got to keep plodding away at it. So in a lot of senses, you are already resilient. But when it comes to the distribution of your resources, material or otherwise, what you have to invest, it's been going in the wrong direction. Or for it to continue in the direction that it is would be wrong, rather than it's been in the wrong direction. Like I said, you've learned everything you need to learn about that sort of stuff. Like, in a lot of ways, you are at the top of your game there. This is where the work needs to happen. Let's get another card for that from the Wild Unknown. Tell me about these double knives. Yeah, man. The Tower. I mean, that says it all. And there you are, again, at the bottom of the deck. I mean, the 9s for me all speak about the way that you manage whatever suit they represent. So the 9 of Wands is about how, what you actually do. Where you put your life force, right? How you survive is a little bit of a strong word, but right, how you survive whatever it is that life throws at you. How you become resilient, where your boundaries are, that sort of stuff. 9 of Pentacles is saying your investment hasn't really been in you in a long time. But the Tower and the Queen of Pentacles are saying this is where it needs to go. In order for you to turn that 9 of Pentacles the right way up, you need to start investing in yourself. And that doesn't mean, putting yourself on a new training course to become even more proficient at what it is that you do very proficiently already. It's about realizing that you have an innate value just by fucking existing. Like, this is the second time that we've seen the Tower card coming up to speak to you personally. And again, Pluto transit, shaking everything up. Because what was will not do moving forwards. We see that with the 7 of Pentacles. This is a situation that you are in that is actually less than optimal and possibly has been for a very long time. You know, the Seven of Pentacles is that point where you realize that the investments that you have made in whatever direction that you have chosen to make them aren't going to pay off the way that you want them to. Not the way that you initially anticipated when you started investing in them. And we come back to this idea that just emotional fulfillment isn't coming the way that it used to. Something has to change here. And I like the Seven of Pentacles because it's actually very present. It's like, what's wrong? What's wrong inside? What's wrong outside? Where do I start shifting around the focus? Where do I start investing so that I can make this correct? And I think the healing is a huge part of this, Capricorn, because you've been carrying around this wound for the longest time and not realizing the extent to which this has been dictating all of the decisions that you've made. You are arriving at a point now where that is possible for you to see. And once it's possible for you to see that, and you can start healing what is hurt within you, you can start changing what your external environment is like. And I think people form a huge part of this for you. Like Two of Cups, Three of Cups, we saw them in the YouTube reading. There's a strong indication here that it is the kind of people that you are around that are kind of making or breaking your progress in terms of the growth of your soul. I know that sounds pretty abrupt, but that is what it is. So, you know, your partner, is this someone that triggers growth in you? Or is this someone that perpetuates this need for you to keep yourself smaller on an emotional scale than you should be? Your closest friends, your closest work colleagues, these are all mirrors for you. And if you perceive issues with them, and with that double Knight of Pentacles, there is a criticality that's coming in here, right? Not necessarily the shadowy kind of aspect of it where you're nitpicking for the sake of it, but just like properly looking at something, looking at a relationship, looking at a set of people and going, do I actually align with this anymore? I thought these people were great for the longest time, but maybe they're not so great. Maybe I've been projecting my gold out onto them. Possibly. These two cards here also speak for a need for change, right? Whatever direction you've been going, there's no more new ground that can be covered by this. My Page of Wands in the reverse is very, very clear about that. But the Knight of Swords in the reverse is a lack of communication. It's a lack of information flowing, right? There's a lack of anything new for you to learn going down this road in this way with these people. And so we arrive at the Two of Wands, right? This tipping point. Again, keep kind of coming up to it and then coming back away from it, and then coming up to it and coming back away from it. And there's going to be a point where, and I think we're hitting it in December, where it becomes so obvious the extent to which things need to change that you can't retreat back into the Two of Wands. Not fully, at least, anyway, because there's this kind of progression and then check yourself, and then progression and check yourself that I'm seeing right the way through December for you. But the important thing is that there's progression. It's not like I'm sat at this Two of Wands, I could go this way, I could go that way, but actually I'm just going to sit on it for a little bit and keep doing things the way that I have been doing, because that just has always worked. It's like, that's shifting, that's changing this month, because that doesn't work anymore. No, just the fact that the Seven of Pentacles is touching that Three of Wands as directly as it is saying that the whole month is about changed behaviour for you. Let's have a look at that. Let's see what links the two and the three. Queen of Wands. Now that's interesting, because that's an Aries card. And as no doubt a lot of you will be aware, like the North Node is in Aries at the moment. And it's the first feeling that I had when I saw that card, is that it is initiating this connection to the I am rather than the we are. Now, Capricorns, I think, have a really good sense of self. It's not like Pisces, where they just, literally don't know who they are at all. But I think it's a sense of self that's been somewhat sort of buttressed by childhood trauma and emotional pain. And because Capricorns are very capable and efficient and don't tend to let themselves get stuck for too long before they, go off in a different direction. Avoidant is the word that keeps bouncing around. Now, I'm always saying that you can change your life with just a thought, right? Perspective is everything. And if the perspective that you've held has been that you are successful and you're doing these things and this is all good, and you've been comfortable enough with how well all of that has gone, that you've been able to push to the side any emotional neglect that you have felt, whether that's come from you towards you or whether it's from the people that you are around. All right, where you've always felt a little bit emotionally misunderstood, or everything right up to potentially panic-stricken about somebody getting too close. The perspective that you've held has been very tunnel focused. It's been tunnel vision. We're not looking at these things outside of here, we're just looking that way instead. And by that rhetoric, everything that's going on within this little frame of reference here has been really, really good. But if you start pulling the blinkers away and looking at the wider situation, it's like the feeling that there are things that you personally are missing out on that you didn't even realise that you wanted. It's like I said in the YouTube reading, right? The very thing that you've craved is the very thing that you've not allowed yourself for whatever reason. Now, part of the individuation process for you, the becoming the I am, is recognising the bits of you that require attention that haven't had it. And this is why I say everything seems a little bit murky, like you don't really know the next step forward, because it's actually dictated by connection to the internal stuff that you haven't really spent that much time engaging with. It's all new territory. It's unmapped and it's uncertain, but it's yours. And there is no one who is going to be able to look in there and give you the guidance moving forwards, because it's so highly personal, but it's taking into account bits of you that you haven't seen the light of day for possibly for decades. And what I like about this Two of Wands and this Three of Wands combination here together, and I do like it for you, Capricorn, is that it is accompanied by the King and the Queen of Wands. Because this is balanced energy of inside and out. It's working out what you're going to do, but more importantly, why you're doing it. Why you need to do it, how you're going to do it. This is the internal subjective experience of the wand suit, right? So if you're relating it to the Queen, right, it's to the King, beg your pardon. It's understanding our internal motivations, it's understanding our drives, it's understanding why we want to do a thing rather than just doing the thing. The Queens are all about making sense of the actions. Now, I asked what it was that connected the Two of Wands to the Three, aside from the obvious. What is it that shifts here that hasn't shifted before? Because there have been plenty of times where you've been sat on a crossroads and you've just decided to take the middle road for a little bit longer. And it is this activation of Aries energy. It is this activation of the North Node. But it's also about the fact that you're getting to the point where you're starting to make sense of your own drives, your own motivations, the things that make you feel passionate. Because it could be that the things that made you passionate before are kind of going off the boil a little bit and you're confused. Why is this happening? It's because of this tower that's affecting your internal space where you are changing, you are growing, you are morphing, and likely in the process, possibly outgrowing a lot of the people that you surrounded yourself with for the longest time. But the combination of the two court cards together is giving you the strength and the impetus to make the changes that we see in the Three of Wands. And we've got the Star card there. Now, the Star card is the future, your future, because it's Aquarius, right? It's all very future-facing. But the Star is also that feminine energy of healing after the masculine intervention of the Tower, right? These are different energies. It's very masculine, it's very abrupt, it's very choppy, it's very violent sometimes. The Star card is altogether much more gentle. It is about healing. But we also have Pluto in Aquarius that keeps cropping up as a thing here. And when we link it with this idea that you are very, very close to the end of what it is that you have to do, you're close to the end of being so uncomfortable. It's just this push, this next push to lean into what is uncomfortable, lean into what is uncertain, lean into what is you. Because the only way that certainty is created is by engaging with that and paying attention to what it is that it's telling you. You know, to put it at its most basic, for some of you, it might be the realization that you have been lonely your entire fucking life. But also the realization that the reason that you've been lonely is because you haven't let people in the way that people have wanted to be there for you. That's not going to be true for all of you, but definitely for some of you it will be. For others of you, it's the realization that you've surrounded yourself with a group of people who a year ago you thought were the dog's bollocks, but now you're starting to see issues in them as souls, not just as achievers, people who are going out there and doing things, and you respect that, and that's all very good. But it's like perceiving the emptiness in some of these people. Now, the corollary of that is that there's an emptiness being reflected back at you. And if you can engage with that emptiness and see that it isn't actually emptiness, it's just a wall that stops you connecting with that bit of yourself. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of Capricorns are starting to inch towards some sort of deeper spirituality. And I'm not saying the spirituality that you've had has been surface, but I think it's like realizing that there are depths and levels to this, and the more you engage with your own internal depths and emotional depths, where you start to see where things aren't working out the way that you would like them to, that there's correspondingly a bigger sense of connection to something that sits outside of you but you are innately a part of. Because the one thing that the Star card also talks to me about, and I think I don't know, I've never tripped across anybody else talking about the Star card in this way, is connection. And the reason that it means connection to me is because of the whole following guiding star. An idiom, I believe. But when you say that, we all understand what that means, and it might be an Abrahamic religion thing, right? Maybe it might be related to the Bible and the three wise men and the shepherds and following the star and whatever. But when we talk about following our guiding star, we're talking metaphorically about this big twinkling thing in the sky that we feel such a sense of connection to, such a sense of trust with, that we can almost hear it saying, this way, and we go, okay, and we follow it. That's like the most profound sense of connection, conducted without words, that I can think of. So whether you are chasing connection to people, connection to yourself, connection to your spirituality, to the universe, to source, to your higher self, to your spirit guides, the realization that all of these are the same fucking thing means that I would not be surprised if Capricorns are leaning into this really fucking hard. My late husband said to me many times, you can change your life in an instant. And I looked at him, gave him the face. And he was like, no, you can't. You can change your life with a thought. And I was like, silly boy, he knows nothing. But he was right. And it's taken me the best part of 20 years to work out that he was right about that. And if the problems that we have in the now, we look at them objectively, really objectively, and go, I got massive trust issues, or I just want to be seen, I just want to be loved, I want to feel like I can connect with someone without the absolute terror of them rejecting me. You can see how it's a test of faith to put yourself out there, to lean into what is so very fucking uncomfortable, to achieve it. But how just the thought that you could change everything. Because I think this month for you is about fucking immense breakthroughs, Capricorn. Whether you're or not you're a December Capricorn, the majority of December is taken up by Sagittarius. And that last month before your birthday, that last season before your birthday, represents the winding up of the year. So we do tend to get a little bit more introspective during this time. What have we achieved over this year? What did we want to achieve? Have we actually managed it? How am I different from this time last year? This Eight of Swords represents where your mind has been very closed to a particular way of doing things, right? We talk about it in terms of mental restriction, the cage that we put ourselves in. And I think the imagery on this card is actually fucking inspired. Because we've got mermaids, right? So we're under the water. Water being the emotions in the tarot. And we're looking at this old man. That's what this splitch is down here. It's an old man. Fucking, come on. Okay, well, it's kind of going in and out of focus, right? But it's there. There's an old man lying on the floor, on the seabed, and he's being peered at by mermaids. The mental restriction is this old man trying to trying really hard to keep the restriction together, all protective like. The mermaids, I think, are the bit of your emotions that want to come out. Now, you know, I'm not really mermaids and unicorns and all that kind of thing, but I think that the symbolism here is really quite astonishing. Particularly for a Saturnian sign who is represented by, you know, old age and, you know, fucking experience and wisdom and all that sort of stuff. But he's on the seabed going, I cannot hold back the water anymore. And the mermaids have swum up and go, cool, what the fuck is that? Do we even need that anymore? I don't think we need that anymore. Let's swim. The very thing that you want is absolutely within your grasp. But you're going to have to change the way that you think in order to make connection with it. That's what this month is about. We don't see a wall of water, we don't see a tsunami, we don't see any of those things, but we do see you having to accept that life seems to be wanting you to experience it on a different level. And in order to do that, there are a lot of things that need to come down. This Tower card's absolutely beautiful. Just love it. This is the third tower that we have now seen for you, Capricorn. And people get very terrified by the tower, and like it can be a frightening energy, but it can be a truly liberating energy too. And I really do feel like the tower is shifting around your insides and saying there's more to life than what you have been experiencing so far. And you can experience it all if you allow yourself to. Like I said, tidying house. It's not an overnight job when you're unpicking decades of conditioning. The fact that we end on the Six of Pentacles, I love. Because just as the Star card comes after the Tower, right, we've got the healing after the upheaval. We've got the balance that is being brought by you, because it's a minor arcana card, so it's the actions that you take. Like, you are actively balancing self, and it comes back to this sense of, where am I at? Do I like this? What is my body saying? Do I feel comfortable here? Do I feel uncomfortable here? Is it a bad thing that I feel uncomfortable here? Are the people around me what I want to see in myself? If the answer is yes, proceed. Take another step. If not, then there's a little bit of sorting that has to happen here before you can move on. But you're doing it, Capricorn. That's the important thing here. It's you. Tower card here for you is a release all over, and it's coming through consistently, so it's not like one big tower that's knocking you off your feet and then you're having to repair yourself. It's like a series of insights, a series of new ways of thinking that are exposing themselves to you, being like, well, what about this? Oh, holy shit, okay, well, that's possible. I feel like a lot of this month is about leaning into what you feel rather than what you think. And that's a new space for you to be in, which can be a little bit overwhelming, but if you're willing to engage with it as it comes up and look at what you're holding on to, and asking yourself realistically if you want to continue to hold on to that any longer. Because when you can see that there's something there that you've been holding on to that directly links to a pain that triggers every time anything goes, you're like, why are you holding on to it? Put it down. You don't need to take it with you. If you want to flow, then you need to release the anchors, Capricorn. And we really are now counting down the weeks until Pluto takes his boot off your throat. It's the last little push. I think it's pretty extraordinary, actually. Feeling like you can breathe again. It's very close. It's very, very close. It just needs a little last bit of effort from you. You know? Alright, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.